All right, so welcome to DES240. This is Information Design, and we're in Mod 3 of 2017. It's already becoming spring, and it looks like we have a good little group with us here for the live session. I'm teaching two full sections of this course, so we have quite a few students in here, which means hopefully there'll be some good participation in our lectures. Just keep in mind that this session is for both sections. So in case you wonder, in your discussions and so forth, you'll only be restricted to the students that are in your specific section. But in our live lectures, you may mingle and meet some other people, which is kind of fun. Yeah, so I look forward to our time together the next 4 weeks that we're going to spend talking about information design. Let me just start with our agenda here, just to kind of give you an overview of what we're going to talk about today, and then we'll kind of go from there. And please feel free. I've got my chat up, so I hope I'll try to keep an eye on it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. If it seems like I didn't see your question, or started ranting on with something and kind of lost my focus there on the chat, feel free to turn on your mic and let me know that you had a question that I missed. All right. So today we're going to start with a bit of an introduction. We're going to do kind of all of the beginning of class things, like we're going to talk about the policies and the expectations. We're going to do a bit of a course overview. We'll talk about the introduce yourself part of the course. And then we'll get into the week 1 overview, talk a little bit more about what's going on this week. I'll go over the discussion for this week, and we'll start reviewing the assignment. All right, so first of all, just a quick little, oh, cool, everybody is coming in here. Welcome, Tanya. And I think Brittany showed up while I was talking, and maybe somebody else. So welcome in here. So I'm Pia. I don't know if you've had a chance to look through the instructor bio or the little PDF that I send out to everyone to introduce myself. So, but I'll just keep it brief. Does anybody know what this flag right here is? What country is this? Anybody know that? This is where I was born and raised. Sweden, that's right, Terry. Yep. Good old Sweden, one of the larger Scandinavian countries up north, in the north part of Europe. That's where I was born and raised, but I've lived here in the US for over half my life now. Currently, I live in Salt Lake City. As we talked about before we started the recording here, we talked a little bit about the weather. And you can see that there's snow on the mountains here, even when the trees in the valley are green and flourishing. So we do have snow on the mountains most of the year. I have a big family. Yep, I am from Sweden, Brittany. Yep, that's where I was born and raised. Oh, okay. Your relatives from Norway? My grandfather was Norwegian, so I have family over there too. So, cool. All right, yeah. The internet really does connect us, doesn't it? Makes the world a lot smaller if we can keep up friendships and get to know people all over the place. So I have a big family. I have 6 children. Some of them are married. Some of them just have significant others at this point, and we're expecting some weddings to come along. And here's a little picture we took at Christmas with the whole entire group. My 2 little cute grandkids and the dogs. We're we're an animal loving family. There's dogs and there's cats and all kinds of fun getting together. And over here we've got my dog Otis. You might hear him once in a while if he has something to say here in the background when we're recording the sessions. But he's my adventure companion. I love going up in the mountains and hike and canoe and kayak, all of those kinds of things, and he loves to come along. So, all right, Raven loves cats. Yeah, I don't have a cat, but some of my kids have cats, and a lot of them have both cats and dogs. So, a bunch of animals in the family. All right, so let's talk a little bit about policies and expectations. Oh, Belinda, you have 2 healers? Yep, good dogs. Yeah. All right, so in the classroom, you will have the general guidelines listed in there. When I switch over our view to the classroom, we can kind of skim through those briefly. They're the same ones that have been in all of your courses, so up until now. Specifically, my own policies and guide and expectations. I'll be posting this in the announcements too for your review, but let's see, we can take a little look at those right now. Let me switch up here. Oh, come on, where's all of my stuff? There we go. All right, actually, let's go to the classroom first. So you have here in your syllabus all of the general guidelines for the course. There is tips on how to study, how to participate, how to communicate, all of those kinds of things. And hopefully you've gone through these in previous courses, right? Are you all familiar with this page? Okay, great. All right. So I won't go through and read this, specifically. Just remember that this is where the general guidelines are that we keep to as a school. And then congruent with that, and I don't think it's much different, but maybe a little bit more typically, my take on this and my specific policies are in here. So when it comes to email contacts and questions, like I mentioned, we have a big class. We have over 60 students that are going to be taking this class, this mod. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have or help you with anything that you need. But please, check the announcements on the policies and listen to the recorded lecture first, because there might be answers in there to your question. I do check and respond to my email in the morning and the evening, depending on your question or what you need. Some information might take a little bit of time for me to find, but I will let you know. I do prefer email or text. That's usually the way that I can respond the fastest. I am also an associate dean, so I have other responsibilities as well during the day. But if you want to leave me a voice message and I can call you back, that will work, or we can set up an appointment to meet over the phone. If you do text me, please include your name. Well, I'm only teaching one class this module, so I guess you don't really need to tell me the class, but it's good to know so that I know that you're one of the students in my class, because I don't have all of the student phone numbers in my contact list. So let me know who you are, but texting works fine too if you have questions or anything. I do have some office hours on Fridays between 9 and noon. That's actually going to be changed to 11. So I'll go in and double fix that before I send it out to you. And we can set up meetings by appointment there. We'll do it through the class calendar. And so I'll show you how to use that. If you can't attend those meetings, you can actually just email me a question. And if there's anything you want me to take a look at or demonstrate or whatever, I'll just record it during that time for you and send you the recording. So I know that those morning hours does not work for everyone. Any questions on that? Okay, great. Okay, so as far as grading, there is rubric posted. So that's something that I'll remind you to check. Make sure that, remember that the correct file name and type is part of your grade and the presentation is part of your grade. And when it comes to late assignments, there is the 20% deduction unless we have made specific arrangements. So you need to contact me personally if you have difficulties meeting those deadlines. I will try to get all of the grades posted by Tuesday night. Technically, I have till Wednesday, and since we are a big group, depending on the project, might move into Wednesday a little bit, but most of the time I'll get your assignments posted by Tuesday night. Now, late assignments are a little bit different. I don't go in and grade every day, so it might take, you know, a few days depending on when that late assignment is posted before you get the grade, which can cause some problems, which we'll talk about in a little bit here when we talk about the structure of the class and the assignments. Because a lot of these assignments are going to build on one another, and so it becomes difficult to catch up and continue. All right, so some of the expectations that I have for you as students in the class is make sure you read the instructions carefully and keep with the specifications of the assignments. Watching and attending the lectures. So check, check, check for all of you guys who are here and who are hearing my words. This is one of the most important parts of your studies here at the university. Why do you think it's so important that you come to the lectures? I say now, preaching to the choir. So those of you who are here, what do you feel like you get out of the lectures? Okay, Katrina likes that you can ask questions. And talk about the class. Good point, Belinda. Yeah, you might miss important information or changes in the assignments. Yep. The instructor has the privilege to make smaller changes to the submissions or some of the details of the assignment. And so if you're not listening to the lecture, you might miss that. Oh yeah, it becomes a much more personal experience, Katrina. I agree. So yeah, and also, there will be visual demonstrations and examples that I will show in class that will really help you with these assignments. You're studying a visual topics, visual subjects, and it's very hard to convey all of that in just written form, like the only way that we can do it in the classroom is, through written form. And so, seeing visual examples of what's expected or what we're talking about is very important, right? Because when one person imagines one thing when they're reading things and another person will imagine something different. And so seeing it in class will really help kind of focus in on what we're talking about, right? Yeah. Okay. And then, of course, let me know ahead of time if you're sick or having difficulties. Of course, it's not always easy to know ahead of time that you're sick if you're going to be sick. But as soon as you are, and if you know that you might not be able to meet the deadline or whatever, let me know as soon as you can. I'm always willing to work with the students that are showing effort, trying hard, and communicating with me. Be sure that you're planning all your backups, okay? And this includes internet backup, computer access, and backing up your files. So everybody, yay, do you have a backup for your internet, a place that you know you can go if the internet at home goes out? Everybody has a backup computer access of some sort that can handle Adobe software, because we'll be working in Adobe here. And I hope everybody is backing up their files, because you're going to be needing these files in the future as well, not only for this course. All right, so if you know for yourself that you have, you know, a weakness here, that there's, you know, you might not know of another computer that you can use or something, you know, make some phone calls, figure something out so that you know that you have that. If your backup computer is and I know we have some web students in here too, so some people are going to be working on a Mac and some are going to work on a PC. If your backup computer is different than the regular computer that you're working on, no fear, your Adobe CC account, you can download for a second machine as well. You have 2 licenses on there, and you can have that license fit the other type of computer if you need to. Yep, an external hard drive is great for backup. You can even just buy a small, cheaper flash drive, or you can also just back up your files on Dropbox or your cloud service or anything like that. All right. Yep. If you can, you can use your license for 2 devices. So it's not actually 2 licenses. You have 1 license, but it's good for 2 devices. So that could be, you know, a laptop and a desktop. It could be, and it doesn't matter if it's a Mac or a PC. You just have to. It will know that when you're downloading it. All right. If you have any issues with the Adobe software, please let me know right away. Don't wait until, you know, we're well into the course and then, you know, saying, oh, I couldn't do my assignments because my Adobe isn't working. We need to know right away so we can get that resolved. If you don't understand anything, ask. That's what school is all about. It's about learning. We don't learn if we don't ask questions. And so don't feel bad. There are no stupid questions. It's just stupid not to ask. That's the only thing. All right, watch the media, read the articles. We'll look through those a little bit closer, but there's not enough time in our lectures to go over both the assignments and the things that I've prepared and go through all of the media. And so sometimes I'll refer back to them. Sometimes they're a little supplemental. I'll talk about it for each week in our first lectures. But sometimes, you know, I will assume that you are watching the Linda videos and reading any of the articles and things that are in the media so that you have that background information. And kind of like I mentioned in the introduction, that's one of the reasons that I have our first lecture on Tuesday is because I feel like you can use Monday to kind of get yourself acquainted with the new week, kind of take a look at things, start looking at some of the information and things like that in there, and then we'll build on that in the lecture. All right, so that's that. Do you guys have any questions on my policies there? And like I said, I'll be posting this in the announcement, so you can download it and keep it for your reference if you need to. Okay, yep, if any questions come up, feel free to contact me on that as well. All right, so I'm gonna keep my PowerPoint here so I don't forget anything. So if you are retaking the class, this was something I was thinking about just right before we started. If any of you are retaking the class, this class has just barely been rewritten. So even if you had it last module or just a couple modules ago, this is brand new material that we have in the class now. It's been updated, it's been refreshed. I'm pretty excited about it. When we get into the classroom, you're going to see the new style and template. Some of your previous courses might have followed this, some have not. We continually update our courses because this is an evolving field, and so we want to be on the cutting edge of things. So we continually update and improve our courses, and so sometimes you'll see a course in a certain format, and another time you'll see it in this new format. So, but I'm kind of excited to show you through it and to show you the things that are in here. But if you are retaking the class, you probably won't be able to use much or any of your previous assignments and know that it's taking a different turn. Some of the projects are different, the approach is a little bit different, and all of that kind of stuff. So if you have any specific questions on that, please let me know. All right, and so another thing I kind of just wanted to mention when it comes to studying graphic design. Have you guys noticed any big differences between, now that you guys have had your first level of design classes, have you noticed a big difference between your general education classes, your marketing, your English, those type of classes, and your design classes? And what kind of differences have you noticed? Okay, design classes are more in depth. Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by more in depth? Okay, last month it was pretty crazy and fun. What classes did you guys have just last module? Let me see if you guys are about moving at about the same speed. 209 and 244, okay. Belinda thinks they're more challenging, okay. Seems to be more work. Okay, you kind of worked on one campaign through the whole course. Okay, and some of you are in the web design program, so you will have had kind of different classes than the graphics art students. All right. And so you guys probably have even more to compare to. You have your web design classes, the classes that you take from us in graphic arts, and then the general courses. Yeah. All right, so yeah, studying, more traditional subjects, or like the general education subjects that everybody has to take, no matter what your major is, like English and social studies, history, marketing, those kind of classes, is quite different than it is studying graphic design. In some of those other classes, it's, learning certain things, learning APA formatting, and there's rights and wrongs about that, remembering information and just kind of reiterating that, making sure that you've learned different strategies, different concepts, all of that kind of stuff. And you can turn in your assignment and, pretty much get what you need to. The lectures, I'm sure, are important, but you can mostly read yourself to the answers and being able to get a good grade on your assignment, right? Studying graphic design is a lot more conceptual. So it's not as black and white. It's not as right and wrong answer as some of these other subjects. You probably have noticed that, right? Some of it is more about the concept and then practicing. And so in the 100 level courses, you learn some different Adobe tools. You use different exercises to learn how those tools function and when you use them. And then you showed your instructor that you understood how to use them, right? And that was where your assignments was from. And as you get up into the 200 level courses, and it looks like most of you have had 209 and 244, you probably notice that you have a little bit more freedom, so to speak. You're expected to use your design skills to practice the design principles kind of on your own and venture out a little bit more on your own. And your teacher might not demonstrate exactly perfectly how you should do a project, and you won't be always given all of the components and resources. You have to do a little bit more research, right? So I hope that you kind of are able to make that transition and internalize that, because it's going to be very important when you work as a graphic designer that you kind of systematically learn the design process, that it's not just about reading something and then opening up Adobe and putting it in there and submitting it for an assignment. It's about understanding what the concept is about, and then in your assignments and your assessments, you're gonna practice what you're learning about. So this is part of your professional preparation. We try to make the assignments and the courses mimic what you might do as a professional designer. And especially in the 200 level classes, we do that. And it will help you learn how to become a problem solver, because that's what designers are. That's what we do. We solve problems. And so we're gonna continue to talk about that. You'll hear me talk about that quite a bit. So does that kind of make sense to everyone? All right. And for you, for the ones that are in web design and, come from a little bit different angle than the graphic arts students, feel free to ask if you don't follow with, but I know you've taken some of the same 100 level classes as well. So hopefully things will sound familiar to you also. All right. You guys are all good with design principles, the crap principles, all of that stuff, right? Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of the ways to be successful in this course. So attend and watching the lectures. We've already talked about that. This is where all the specifics and details are. Another good way to also prepare you for the future is to think of me as your client or your boss if you were working in a design studio of some sort. So if I, as the instructor, am your client or your boss, what do you think the lectures would be? Hint, it's on the slide. Yeah, meeting with the client. Do you think you'd be able to do a good job for your client or for your supervisor if you never met with them, never talked to them? They were never able to explain to you what they were looking for? Exactly. So same thing here. Our lecture is our meetings. The same thing about communication. If you found yourself up against a deadline that you might not be able to meet, or there was obstacles in your way, you had questions, what would you do if I was your client? Call them. Okay, great. Contact them, right? Talk. Communicate. Exactly. All right. So you get the idea. Keep that in mind. And that will also really help you practice how to work in a professional situation. Be sure that you use the resources. Here at Independence University, we have so many resources for you. We know that it's difficult sometimes when you are in an online environment to feel really connected or to know what to do in certain circumstances when you don't have your instructor face-to-face. So there are, of course, the things in the classroom, the media, the videos. We also have our class coach, and be sure to, do some of your own research. Most of our discussion questions is going to encourage you to do some research, and that's really going to help you as well. Read the instructions carefully and make sure you follow the specifications. That's going to be part of your grade. And then if you check the rubrics before submitting, that can really help you as a checklist. And I'll go through and kind of walk you through the rubric for this week later on. And then just a little pitch on the daily checkpoints. So what are our daily checkpoints for? So they're for attendance, right? They track your attendance. Yeah, exactly. And so 4 are required for you to do. And the other ones give you extra credit, which is awesome. It's always nice to have that little buffer in case, you score low on something, or you maybe have a late deduction or something like that. Then that little buffer is nice to have. But along with this course being restructured and reformatted, we have gone in there and kind of updated all of the daily checkpoints. So there might be 1 or 2 in there that still talk about financial aid and that kind of stuff. You guys know, right? You've run into those in there sometimes, but most of them are going to pertain a lot to the subject that we're talking about that week. So yeah, Belinda, they're going to be really valuable information in there. And there might even be times in my lecture where I'll refer back to some of the information that was in there. Now, they're not required, and so it's not something that, is going to be brought up on a test or a quiz or anything like that. But it is really good information that you learn in there. So I'm glad to hear that you're saving that information, because that's what I suggest for students to do too. Sometimes there will be written information in there that you can just copy and paste into your own Word document. Sometimes there's videos or links, and you can save those links as well so that you can, have it as a reference. I think it's a good idea to maybe start a Word document, call it a DES240 checkpoint information or something like that. And then just kind of list all of the different information that you get in there, and then you can save it. And then you will have it for the future if you ever need to refer back to it. Because as you know, once the checkpoint is done, you kind of can't go back and do it later, right? So it disappears. So save any of that info. And that will kind of motivate you to go in there and do them on a daily basis as well. So, hi, Tiffany. Welcome to class. All right. So, and also for the last one here, I'm putting it in caps and italics, be a problem solver. Everything, any kind of resistance or difficulties you run into or questions you run into in class gives you an opportunity to practice being a problem solver, practice being a designer. Even if that problem is that, how am I going to fit in listening to the lectures and doing my daily checkpoints into my schedule, learning how to manage your time, working out some creative solutions on, you know, maybe doing your checkpoint on your commute, or during your lunch break, watching a lecture during a lunch break, or, you know, after your family have retired for the evening. You know, figuring out all of those things helps your creative mind work. And it's part of what you do as a designer, believe it or not just as a student, but it helps you be a better designer. Every time you figure out some kind of new solution, new option to a problem, you are practicing your design muscles, your design brain. So think about that, you know, oh, okay, so my computer has to be sent in for repairs. What can I do? How can I, you know, access the information I need to? How can I get my Adobe access? You know, instead of feeling like, oh, it's not going to work out, you know, try to find those little holes and opportunities and workarounds that will help you still continue the path that you've set off and become a problem solver. Okay. All right, so now let's start talking about our course. We'll go through all of these different things. I think we'll just do it in the classroom so you can see it. We'll talk about the course information, the syllabus, the due dates, instructor contacts, the live sessions, court media, Linda, and announcements. So let's just go into our course here. And so, of course, you recognize the course homepage with all the little shortcuts. And it's totally up to you, however you feel most comfortable. Here, let me actually put it into a student setting, because sometimes I feel like it looks a little bit different. All right, so you have that. You have shortcuts down here for each one of the weeks and each one of the assignments. And you have the announcements that I hope that you check on a regular basis. Personally, I usually like to look through things through the modules list, because it's a little bit, everything is really clearly listed over here. You can kind of go through and see what's in each week, but it's totally up to you how you like to navigate. There's many different ways to do it in this course. So for the course information, you have a description of our course. It focuses on visual representation of technical information in a variety of mediums. Okay, so that's pretty broad, a little bit cryptic, right? Something happened right there. We just barely got cut off a little. Looks like the recording is, let's see. There we go. Now the recording is still going. Is everybody still with me? I don't know what happened there. Yeah, all of a sudden things just kind of, I think I know what happened. My stupid internet bounces. I have like a infinity hotspot right where I live, and every so often it will just jump from my my router to that hotspot instead. It just wants to jump onto that instead, I guess. And that's just what happened, and I don't want to switch that. So I hope it's going to be strong enough for us to continue, because if I switch that, I'm afraid it'll break us up again. So, all right. Okay, everybody's with me. Did you guys miss anything? Or is this where we left off? Okay, good. All right, so we were on here, number 3, using a vector graphing tool. So that's a new tool that you're going to learn how to use in Illustrator. And then we're going to talk about the components of a user-friendly interface experience. That's going to be in weeks 3 and 4. And for that project, you're going to develop a user interface, which should be a user interface experience with a cohesive feel and a set of symbols. And then we're also going to explore the future of infographics and user interface design and technology. Does it sound exciting to you? Anybody getting pumped? All right, cool. Yeah, we have a couple of projects here that I think are pretty fun, no matter which area of this field you're coming, direction you're coming from, whether it's graphic arts or web design. And we're going to talk a lot about, new technologies and how they actually function and work with people in their everyday lives. So I think it's going to be exciting. The learning objectives are listed down here below. We'll cover a different set of them each week. I won't read through them. We'll just go through them as we go by the weeks. This is an open educational resource class, so we don't have a textbook. Instead, all of your text or media will be in the media list that we'll go over a little bit later. It's a mixture between web articles, videos, and lynda.com tutorials. You have a little bit of a breakdown of the hours, and then a topical outline. And this is, kind of interesting. You can take a look at that to see the different topics that we're going to be covering each week. So week 1, we're going to starting with visualizing data and infographic design. And then in week 2, we're going to start talking more specifically about designing an effective infographic and using those vector tools. And then in week 3, we're going to start our second project, which is a user-friendly interface. And we're going to talk some more about design careers. And in week 4, we'll finish up our user interface and talk more about interactive media and the future of infographics. All right, and so then the course task list breaks everything down for you. So this way you can look through this and kind of compare it to your own schedule, things that are coming up in the future, and kind of plan ahead. So that can be kind of nice to have. All right, any questions so far? Okay. Let's go over and take a look at the syllabus. I'm going to go over here. The syllabus over here. So there is an explanation about, the syllabus, and which, is all of these different parts in there. And a little paragraph on how to use it for success. These are things that are in all of your courses now. But I wanted to have you go down here and hopefully you have seen this course summary, which again is really helpful, I think. You can kind of go through and see the different due dates of everything. It even includes the daily checkpoints in here, and your assignments when they're due and what they are. So that can be kind of good to have in just one place as well, and kind of in order. I've had some students kind of copy this and print it out and check it off as they get things done. If you are one of those that really love to have checklists, you could do that. All right, so let's take a look at here. Due dates and participation requirements, again, similar from what you've had in other courses. And here I was going to mention the daily checkpoints, but we already kind of talked about those. So I don't think there's anything else on that page that we need to cover specifically. And now I'm going from here, the instructor contact information. Here you have my, you can always contact me through the course, of course, through the Canvas system. But here's also my independence.edu email that you can email me to. If you're sending any kind of attachments, sometimes Canvas is weird about that. So it could be better to use just my direct email for that. My phone number, which you also can use for text messaging. And I do have a Skype account. I don't use it that often, but if that's how you would prefer to meet, that is my Skype name, so we can find each other there. And then my Zoom room address right here, which is the same one as our classroom, the one that we're in right now. Any questions on that? Any other kind of, you guys all know how to get a hold of me, right? Okay, great. So for the live sessions, so it's a link on the home page, and it's also right here. So under the live session and recordings, you will see our lecture times. I decided to do a morning time on Tuesday and an evening time on Thursday. I hope that won't be confusing to keep track of, but I was hoping that that would kind of help out people with different work schedules. So at least you'd be able to attend one of the 2 lectures per week. Yep, so that's Mountain Time, of course, so keep that in mind. It's 1 hour earlier if you're on the West Coast, and then either 1 or 2 hours later if you're Central or Eastern Time. On Tuesdays, we'll do most of the overview of what's expected in the week. This first week is a little bit different because we have to go through the whole course and everything. But then generally on Tuesday, I might talk a little bit about last week's submissions. If there was any issues that I saw, we might have a little bit of a critique moving forward, depending on the project. And then on Thursday, usually that's when I'll go over, you know, the final presentation and submissions, answer questions, talk about the assessment, those kinds of things. So yeah, if you can't make it on one of the days, just be sure that you get caught up with the recording, and then ask me any questions you might have after you've watched that recording. Okay. All right, so there's the link to get into the session, and then right here below is where I'll post all of the recordings. So this is where you will access that, and they will be uploaded on YouTube, on my little YouTube channel, so you can access them there. All right, all right, and so I also, this is one thing I wanted to mention, because we had that question right before we started. Some of you are probably used to having our multi-sessions. In the 100 level classes, there was like a main classroom, class session, and then a multi-session where you could go in and just kind of meet the instructor, get help, one-on-one, that kind of stuff. It wasn't really structured like a regular lecture, right? You guys remember those? Okay, so for our 200 level courses, we don't really have that same structure. We have 2 complete lectures, but during that Thursday lecture time, if you have any specific questions, I'll be glad to bring them up and clarify them, do that kind of stuff. I won't be able to do like one-on-one demonstrations usually, but you can definitely get, you know, specific answers, that kind of stuff. If you want any one-on-one help, I have those Friday appointments that you can set up. And then, of course, we have our coach Christy Paulson is our coach this mod, and she's awesome, and she'll be glad to help you in the Student Success Center. All right, so is that all? That's all crystal clear? All right. Okay, so let's take a look at our course media. All right, so you guys have had lynda.com videos before? You're used to how to access those? What do you think? Love them. Yes, Katrina, they're awesome, aren't they? They are such a good resource. Yeah, and you know, depending on how our time goes in class and that kind of stuff and what we start talking about, there might be times where I'll refer to the Lynda videos for your demonstrations. Our playlist will sometimes have just a few sections of a course in it. And if you're more interested and want to go more in depth, you're welcome to check out the whole entire course and go through the other chapters as well. But we've tried to just kind of focus our playlist on the things that you need specifically for that week or the assignments that week. And some of you are saving them as a playlist. That's awesome. All right, good. Yeah. And you know, the Student Success Center, they're a great asset. But like I mentioned earlier, you're in 200 level courses now, and I don't know, depending on if this is your associate's degree or you're a bachelor's degree student. If you're an associate's level student, you're coming up to not too far away from graduation, right? Probably only have maybe 4 or 5 mods left, if you in that October. Katrina's October, okay. So you're coming up to that point where you should be kind of self-sufficient. So could be kind of scary to, be able to let go of your instructors and your coaches and all the support and help that they can give you. So that's kind of why I try to encourage you, and some of your coaches will probably encourage you to try to work as much as you can on your own. Get comfortable with the software programs. And, to me, the only recipe to do that is just spend time with them, do things over and over again. If you get nervous and you feel like you might be messing up your assignment, open up a different document and just kind of practice the tools on the side. Do something else, do something different. Again, go through the Lynda, some of the other Lynda tutorials and do those practices. What's great about our lectures is that you can play it and then stop it, do it, continue playing it, right? So that really helps with the demonstrations as well. So let's start trying to take off those training wheels and get you guys' confidence level up when it comes to working on your own. All right, so let's take a look at what we have here for the, let's see, I might be on the right. So this one tells you how to get into the Lynda playlist. All right, so I'm in the wrong. Course media, I thought it would have the whole thing. Is this a different link? Okay, here we go. So here's the course media list. This is your instructions to get into the lynda.com, but there will be a portal in each week that takes you to the correct playlist, and we'll go through that for each week. So you'll see that each week is listed here with the links. It shows you the required articles, Lynda videos, so you can't just link straight from here to the Lynda videos. You still have to go through the playlist portal, but this lists the different videos and which courses they're from and how long they are, so you can kind of make an estimation when you plan your time. So you can see there's quite a bit in week 1, and then it lists each one of the weeks. So we're going to take a closer look at week 1 when we get to that point. But that's all of the media, is just all of it on one page. If you've had any previous courses that were set up in the old system where each week had a link to a media list, that's not how it's working anymore. All of the course media is listed on this course media page, and you can also get to it here. Here it's called reading and videos, but it's this quick link right here on the home page. So, all right, so the Lynda access, we talked about that. And then announcements. Please check your announcements. I hope you have it set up so that you get notified when I post a new announcement through your email. Because this is, you know, if anything is going on, it's going to be in here. If I ever have to make any changes to our schedule or anything like that, it's going to be in the announcements. I'm going to let you know when the videos are posted, the recordings are posted. I'm going to, you know, put extra resources in here that are maybe not in the course at all. I'll put that up in here. So be sure to always check your announcements on a daily basis, okay? All right, any other questions about just the general overview of the course? You guys are all familiar with it? Okay. Good. I like to go over it in detail just as a refresher and reminder. I'm sorry if it feels redundant to you, but sometimes there are students here too that have been away for a while and are coming back and kind of need a refresher and are not familiar with the new setup of our classroom. So, all right. So let's start talking more specifically about information design now. So that's the name of the course. What's information design? Some of you guys might be in the bachelor's program, information design bachelor's program, that's very more specifically focused on this. But what do you think is information design? And I'm going to put down you guys' answers here. Okay, advertisements. Okay. Now I'm going to have to spell right too. All right, visual data. Good. Any other thoughts? What do you think an information designer does? Are you guys information designers? Are you going to be? Okay, yeah, it can make sales. So you'd be as part of marketing then, right? Okay. What about, do you think it covers other things than just sales information and that kind of stuff? What other kind of places do we need some of this visual data? Yeah, it's true. It's true, Belinda. It covers just about everything and it's everywhere, right? Yeah, anytime you see something and it has a message or some kind of information in it, right? That is information design. Campaign posters, campaigns. Now we're gonna have to fix things. How about, yeah, billboards, street signs, endless. Okay, exactly, street signs. I think that was a good idea. I mean, a good thing here to street signs. you know, that's information. Oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to type and talk at the same time here at all. Any kind of marketing things, just, you know, government information, right? Even any type of information, even if it's not there to try to make you to make a purchase decision or a service decision, it's still information design, right? Websites, is that information design? Yeah, it is. Okay, apps. Yep, and any kind of street signs or any kind of directional signage. I am so happy for our little spell check here. All right, okay. What about like little interactive kiosks like ATMs or self-checkouts or things like that? All right, would that be information design? Does it give you information? Yes, okay. And basically what you can say is it something that gives you information? If you can say yes to that, if you say, is it something that was designed by somebody? If you can say yes to that, then it's information design. So you can see it's a broad topic, and it's something that always has a designer involved. So keep that in mind. As a graphic designer or web designer, you can be working on so many types of different projects. You're not limited to, you know, packaging and advertisements or anything like that. Anything visual that you see has to be designed by somebody. And so, you know, that could be you, depending on what type of work you end up doing. All right, so let's move further here and take a look at the purpose of information design. It's to visually communicate, right? Relaying information, clarity and simplicity. Why do you think that's so important then when it comes to, if we think about it being a way to communicate and relaying information, we start seeing the importance of clarity and simplicity in a different way, right? Because if our design is not clear, yep, and can't be quickly read, can't be understood, if it becomes confusing, if there's a lot of distracting stuff on it, then it's not really good information design, because people won't get the message easily, right? So we always have to think about that user experience. And I'm going to talk a lot about that here in class, but I think we are kind of customized and accustomed to think of user experience mostly in the terms of a web page interaction. But do you think user experience is applicable to other things as well? Yeah, let's think about those two words. A user, or our audience, as we sometimes call it, that's who we're designing for, right? And then think about how they experience our design. So we can translate that into a package design. What's the user experience for a package design? How does it feel to hold? How does it look to read? You know, how easy is it to find certain pieces of information on that package? That's the user experience of a package. What's the user experience of a magazine, say? What are some of the things you might need to think about there? Okay, the information. Think about that user holding that magazine in their hands. What are some of the the things that you as a designer determine that's going to influence that user experience. All right, for example, where do you put the page numbers? Is that going to influence their experience? Yep, all of the design principles will apply. That's exactly right. Yeah, so if it's in the bottom right or bottom left on your left page, so that it's easy for them to flip through and find another page, that's part of the user experience. You know, where the headlines are placed and how noticeable they are when a new article starts. That's part of the user experience. What the front cover looks like is a big part of the user experience, because it's going to probably, you know, make them interested in that issue or not. So there's everything that we do is related to user experience somehow. And so we're going to talk even more about that here in this course. We're also going to talk about human-centered design. And I won't go into that too much because we'll get into it more in week 3 and 4. But basically what that is making sure that you have people at the focus of your design process. And so this has a lot to do with that problem solving and the user experience, and thinking about, you know, how does this actually work, function, and is applied to a human being, because that is our audience. So that includes a lot of problem solving, you know, analyzing of your own project and how it functions and how it works, and you know, revising when needed, all of that kind of stuff. All right, so here, the other thing I wanted to get some input from you guys on, and we kind of started it on the previous slide, but what do you think are some of the vehicles? Let's just list them here separately from the other stuff that we talked about. Some of the different vehicles for information design. So somebody mentioned signage. So that's one of the vehicles. TV, okay. Any other vehicles? So TV, we can call that video, right? Basically. Okay, yeah. Audio, so, okay, so what about radio? When we're talking about information design, I think you can kind of move into the realm of audio, but there's one big component that's missing when it comes to radio and audio that we don't, you know, that doesn't involve us as designers. What is that? The visual component, yes. And so we really focus on the visual communication, which is not there when you're talking about audio or radio, okay? So I'm gonna not put that in the list right now, just because it's not kind of applying to our process right here. But mail, direct mail. Direct mail. What else do we have here? Social media, yes, absolutely. It's very visual, right? Okay. Email, yeah, why not? You know, there's email advertisements, things that go out, that go along with an email. So I think that would work. Yeah, any kind of billboards, which is basically advertising. Right? Okay, now there's one big part right here that I thought some of you guys would be very aware of. What else? Websites. Okay. All right, so I think we've, you know, this is kind of covering, or I'll put just interfaces in general. So that could be on a mobile app, it could be on some kind of other kind of screen, like a kiosk or something like that. So So many different types of vehicles that information design is delivered through. So let's keep that in mind when you think of the user experience and the end user. How are they gonna, you know, interact with this? How is this information going to be delivered? Something. Yes, you should be seeing my list. Are you not? Oh no, here we go again with the stupid sharing. Okay, let's see. All right, how long have you guys not been seeing my screen? Were you not, did you not see when we made this list over here either? Oh no. I'm sorry. Well, I'll go back here. So here was the list that we made. You guys all put these in here and helped me out. So retracting here a little bit, rewind. Rewind back to this one. We talked about the purposes. They're listed right here. And then the different vehicles. Thanks for saying something. Okay. The last that you guys saw this though, right? When we went through the course. Yeah, okay, good. All right, so it was when I went over to the PowerPoint that I lost you guys. Okay. I tried to remember to make it show my whole desktop so that doesn't happen, but has to be, hopefully that's, you know, that's the mistake of the day. We can check that off and from now on it'll be smooth, so. Thanks for saying something. Please don't, you know, please do that. Please speak up if it looks like what you're seeing is not corresponding with what I'm talking about, because then that's probably what's happening. So, all right. Okay, we're all back on track. Sounds good. Okay, so now that we have a little bit of a basis of what information design is, and what the purposes of it is, and the different ways that it can communicate. Let's start taking a look at what we're going to talk about for week 1. I just kind of wanted you to have that background a little bit. So week 1's topic is visualizing data. And I'm going to jump over into the classroom and we're going to go over the objectives, the little introduce yourself, because it kind of actually has to do with the stuff that we're going to talk about in class. The discussion, the assignment, we'll briefly just talk about what the assessment's going to be. We'll talk more about that on Thursday, and I'll go over the media resources. So does that sound okay to everyone? Looks like we have about 45 minutes left of class, so I think we can cover this. All right, sounds good. All right. By the way, if anybody ever has to, you know, would like to put their 2 cents worth in, feel free to, you know, turn on your mic. As long as we don't start talking on top of each other, I welcome it. I get tired of hearing my own voice the whole time, and you guys probably do too. So, all right, let's see here. So let's go to week 1. All right, so here, and this is why I like looking at the modules right here, because I think you can see everything just kind of in a list here. That's helpful. So, but let's take a look at the overview. And here's part of our new format. It has a little introduction video. It lists the learning objectives for our week. So, you know, these are the ones that we're going to be focusing on this week: defining and applying the appropriate use of an infographic template, analyze and evaluate technical data, and filter it so that we can use it in an information design piece, and developing a content strategy for presenting a data in an effective infographic. All right, so as it says in here, information often comes as raw data, and that's not always easy to wrap your head around. Visualizing data in graphs and infographics makes the information a lot easier to relate to and to comprehend. So this week, you're going to learn about infographics and visualizing data, and when you may be able to use an infographic template. And then you're going to start developing your own strategy for your own unique infographic that's going to be completed in week 2. So basically, this course has 2 main projects. Project 1 is going to be done in week 1 and 2, and project 2 in week 3 and 4. So you can see now how it's important to kind of keep on pace, because week 1 is going to be preparing, and week 2 is going to be doing the actual infographic. Then, so that's the first project. And then in week 3, you're going to be preparing for your second project. And then in week 4, you're going to actually deliver that second project. So, and hopefully these 2 projects are going to be something that you can use in your portfolios. So it will be exciting. All right, let's take a break from my voice and just watch this 1.5 minute YouTube video just for a second. I know some of you have probably already watched it, but it's kind of fun, and it has some great facts about visualizing data. So you guys all right with that? Let's see, let me just make sure I turn on the, I'm gonna share the computer sound here to make sure that it's going to show up good. All right, so we'll watch it in YouTube so you can see it a little bit better. All right, I'm going to go to full screen. Let me know if you don't see things well.
Human brains are visually wired. Almost 50% of your brain is involved in visual processing. 70% of all your sensory receptors are in your eyes. And it takes us only 150 milliseconds to process a symbol, plus 100 milliseconds to attach meaning to it. Unfortunately, we have a huge problem with information overload. We receive 5 times as much the information as we did in 1986, consuming 100,500 words outside of work every day. That's why, on average, users only read 28% of words per visit. We'd go crazy otherwise. Infographics counter this overload because they're more engaging.
Okay, I'm going to go back for just a second because I think some of these things are worth talking a little bit more about. Let's go back so we have, all right. You guys can hear me too, fine, right? Okay, so, all right, so, you know, you saw that data there about how our visual perception is so much stronger than anything else. And, you know, what a big difference it makes when we see something, right? That makes our job as information designers or graphic designers pretty important, doesn't it? Think about the impact that we have as graphic designers on people's everyday lives. You know, the things that we design and, you know, the impact that has on just your average person walking around and just seeing all the information around them. And this, I think, is, you know, something that's worth really thinking about. 5 times as much information as we did in 1986. So in 30 years, and for those of you, depending on where you're at in your lifetime, you will remember back to the 80s before, you know, the internet was everywhere, before we had social media, before we had streaming services, data on our cell phones, all of that kind of stuff. And how limited our exposure was. You pretty much had to go out there and get whatever information you wanted. But nowadays, it's just everywhere, right? It's all around us. Yep, black and white TV. I remember when color TV came around. So it's not surprising that on average, people only read about a third of the information that they're actually exposed to, especially on the web, I would say. Yeah, it used to be you had to go to the library or find an encyclopedia or whatever, You couldn't just Google things to find information. So information is so much easier to get to, but there's also such a broad offering, right? So anytime, if you Google a subject, you'll have a list of all kinds of stuff. You start clicking and searching. What's going to convince you to stop and read and look at certain information over other information? Well, that's the designer's job, to, so to speak, market the information that way. All right, so let's continue here. Talking a little bit more about infographics.
We'd go crazy otherwise. Infographics counter this overload because they're more engaging. Color visuals increase the willingness to read by 80%.
80%, that's pretty big difference between just reading white, text on a page comparing to pairing it with visuals. Pretty big difference, right?
More accessible. People following directions with illustrations and text understand them 323% better than those who follow text only.
All right, 300% better if you have images. That's also a big difference.
More persuasive. For example, adding picture with brain scans and mentioning cognitive neuroscience will make more people believe what they're reading. And easier to recall. You'll remember 10% of what you hear, 20% of what you read, and 80% of what you see and do. In short, infographics make it easier for us, and our brains love them for it.
Okay, so with this in mind, do you know what you just watched? Was that an infographic? All right. How much more do you feel like you got out of watching this animated video than if I just would have told you all of that stuff? Or if I would have given you an article just to read? Think back. What are some of the things that you remembered about this video? Anything that's sticking in your mind? Okay, you would recognize the design. It had a very specific design style, didn't it? Okay. The colors were pretty cohesive as well, right? It used this turquoise, the yellow, and this red tone right here across the whole thing. That's something, if I slide through here and you can kind of see the previews, you can see those colors were consistent all the way through. Okay, any other things that kind of pop out that you noticed that helped you remember certain things? Let's see. How about this slide right here? Yeah, the one with the eye that showed all how visual you are. Okay. Think about this slide right here. What's it doing? What's it showing us? It's showing us some different percentages, right? So it's showing us, yep, and it's using shapes. What other kinds of things? Yep, exactly. It's showing how we relate to these different things. Hearing, reading, or seeing and doing. Okay, but how is it using design, a visual design, to kind of emphasize and make that easier to digest and easier to read. It's using shapes. Can you notice some other things that it's doing that really helps us understand this information better? See if anybody can tell us. And you can turn on your mic if you'd like. Okay, you're not sure? Okay, well, let me see if I can help you understand what I'm getting towards. So it's there's 10% of what we hear, there's 20% of what we read, and 80% of what we do. Notice the different sizes in the circles, right? So the size relates to the percentage, right? So the 10% is smaller, the 20% is a little bit bigger, and the 80% is about 4 times as large as this 20% circle. So they're fairly proportionate to the different percentages, right? So that really emphasizes. Now, if these circles would have been the same size, it wouldn't quite have brought the point home in the same way, would it? The bigger one, of course, is the focal point, but it also helps us see the differences, you know, see the proportionate differences between seeing, reading, and hearing. Okay, I'll give you another hint. Proximity. Notice something else in the illustration that's helping us. Yeah, he's pointing at it. So it includes the hand because it talks about what we're doing. It's also focusing right here on the eye, right? Okay, what about the reading and the hearing? How is that positioned and emphasized? So the hearing is over here by the ear, and you see the little hearing wavelengths, right? And the reading is right over by the book. So even the proximity of where these circles and the information that's in the circle is positioned in relation to the main graphic right here supports the information, right? Because the reading is over here by the book, and it's the same color. The hearing is over here by the ear, and it's the same color. And then we have the vision, which is the most, you know, the point that they want to emphasize. And, you know, it has this little gaze from the eye and even includes the hand. All right. So this, just by glancing at this, you kind of get the whole idea of the information very quickly compared to if this was just written out in 3 different paragraphs, right? All right, so that is the whole idea behind infographics. Okay, so keep this in mind as you're planning and working on your project this week. Okay. All right, let's go back here. So your little inspirational quote for the week is, you don't think your way to creative work, you work your way to creative thinking. And so that's basically your inspiration for what you're going to be working on in the assignment this week. But we'll get back to that in a little bit. First, we're going to check out the course media, introductions, and discussion, and then we'll get back to it. Okay? All right. Everybody still doing okay? Are you guys falling asleep? I noticed that a few people needed to leave. Okay, yeah. All right, you're with me still. Okay, so for the course media page, the other thing our new setup has is it has all those little links at the bottom. which I think are really helpful too. So you don't have to go back to the home page or anything. You can kind of just get it from there. So there are a couple of articles to read. This one, Free Tools for Creating Infographics. That one is covered in the discussion, so we'll go through it there. There is another article right here, 5 data visualization best practices. That's pretty good. It kind of comes at it from an angle of, creating data for the inside of a company. So some of these things may or may not relate specifically to your situation or our assignment this week. But there are a couple of things in here that I think are good to keep in mind. And again, here's a little bit of a user experience irritant here, how that always pops up. Keeping visualization dashboards simple and digestible. So I specifically think that is some good things to keep in mind. And choosing the right visual for your purpose. We probably will go back to that when we talk about the assignment. All right, and then the Linda playlist has the key concepts of infographics. Infographics versus the presentation, finding stories in the data. This is an important one for you guys to listen to so that you understand what we're going to be working on this week. And the infographic tool set and visualizing versus presenting data, those are all good information right here. This one here talks about, again, data visualization, what that is and what makes good data visualization, and visual perceptions. And some of the information in here might be covered in a couple of different places, but it will reiterate things and help you really understand it. Chapter 4 on storytelling, that's something that you'll really need to understand for this week's assignment. The infographic fundamentals course here is a really good one as well. Chapter 1 talks about why visualization matters, talks a little bit more about some of the things that just briefly was mentioned in the previous video, the power of visual communication and that kind of stuff. And then it talks about different type of infographics and some of the rules of infographic design. Some of this you're going to need to, we'll address this a little bit more on Thursday probably. And the process. All right, so be sure that you go through some of those Linda videos and get that background information. Let's see here, I want to make sure we get everything covered that we need to in class today. So that's kind of why I brushed over that. We'll see if we have time to maybe peek in on some of those videos. That's not where I wanted to be. Let's go to the, and I'm going to open that in a new tab so we can go back to the media when we need to. All right, introduce yourself, okay? So this is only in week 1. And there used to be a thing in here that just, introduce yourself, talk about yourself a little bit. Now we're trying to actually get that to relate a little bit more to the course. And so a little bit of background right here, talking about how technology is replacing human interaction in a lot of different ways, right? And then the designer is really becoming that connection between the technology and the human being on the other side. And that's why our jobs are becoming increasingly important socially. And so the question that we're posing right here is, how do you prefer to get your information? And when you are interacting and getting certain services or whatever, do you like to interact with a human or an interface, and what's the difference? okay? So I kind of started talking here about my experience a little bit, and you know, how I feel about using an ATM versus talking to a teller, that kind of stuff. And it looks like Lori has already posted her thoughts on it. So is Mike and Katrina. So good. I'm glad to see you guys participating in here. And I think this will be fun to go through. We also will be able to kind of get to where you're coming from. If you're coming from a design angle or a web angle, you know, how, if you're one of those that's grown up with technology from the cradle, basically, or if it's something that you've had to get used to later on in life, that kind of thing. So, and that's one of the things that I think is so exciting and so great about our online environment, is that we have such a variety of background experience in our classes. And I think that really enriches our experience. We can learn from and discuss things with people from all over the country with lots of different backgrounds, different stages of their life, different types of background experience. And that really, I think, is making this educational experience really rich. What do you guys think? And some of you probably know each other in here already from other classes. And I think I recognize quite a few of you. Some of you I've worked with ever since your beginning. You're in my AD group. And some of you, I recognize names from previous classes, and some are new. So this is a good place to connect as well. All right, cool. So this is not required and not scored, but I encourage you to go in here and participate so that, you know, kind of get you thinking a little bit about, again, the user experience of it all, the human connection that our projects will have. Okay, so our discussion, though, is required, and it's a little bit different. So the discussion is, let me just click that so it stops jumping. All right, so the discussion is presenting a little bit of different data, and then starts talking about some of the benefits of infographics, like we just watched in the video, right? And then that video was actually a video, like an animated infographic. Most infographics are static and just basically, you know, an image or an illustration of some sort with different types of data in it. And that's the type of infographic that we're going to create for your first project. So the discussion kind of talks about, you know, what are some of the considerations that have to be made, and kind of how to put it together a little bit. And there is an article right here from Creative Blog that shows different templates that you can study to better understand what an infographic is. And so if we go to that page and you go to that link, you'll see that this article has a list of 10 different free tools that you can use to create an infographic. And I think this is a good article for you kind of to go through so that you get a little bit more of a visual of what an infographic, an interesting infographic is like. It explains each one of these tools just a little bit, and gives you links to the sites where you can subscribe to them or use them. So there's 5 picture chart, infogram, okay, photo free, Vengage, Dippity, all kinds of cool names, Get About, all right? So they're all in here. So be sure to you read this article so you kind of know what we're discussing here in the discussion. And some of the things that I would like you to cover in your post are the pros and cons of using a template. And if you feel like it's perceived as cheating if you're using a template. And then if you do, why or why not? And what could be some of the issues with relying on someone else's design, and when you might need to not use a template, and it's more, it's required or necessary that you create your own infographic. I added a few other little thoughts as well here in my introduction. What does it mean to you as a professional designer or as a prospective designer that all of these templates are available? How is it going to impact your workload and the quality of the templates that you're looking at? Maybe mention some of that a little bit as well. So it looks like we've started getting some posts in here, so I'll be going in and making some comments. And I think it'll be interesting to see what you guys find. You'll be using some of this research in your assessment as well. So keep that in mind. This is kind of a preparatory stage for your assessment. So with that in mind, let me just check on that real quick. We'll go over it more on Thursday. But the assessment is actually using a template. You're actually going to use a template for your assessment submission. So even though there's templates and they're in there, as a designer, you still have to make a choice that your template works well for the type of information that you are that you're visualizing. And so be sure to read the background in here. And then on Thursday, we'll go through a little bit more what's required from you for this assessment. So, but just keep in mind that you're going to go back to that page and use one of these tools to create an infographic for your assessment. All right, how does that sound to you guys? Okay, some good experience, right? Cool, okay. But now let's see, we have a little bit of time left, so let's be sure to check out your design assignment, because I'm sure a lot of you are anxious to start working on it. So the assignment is going to be, and let's see, now I want to have my PowerPoint slide here, because I think it would kind of help to break it up here a little bit. We'll look at it over in the classroom too. But so basically what I mentioned, this is the start of a 2-week project on internet, creating an infographic on internet usage. So for this week, you're going to do your strategy plan, okay? And then next week, you're gonna design the graphic. So this week, you're not creating the infographic at all. You're only starting with your plan. So let's see how that's portrayed here in the classroom, right? So mentions how creating your own infographic from scratch takes a lot of thoughtful planning, okay? You have to know who your target audience is and what the message is. And so if you are going to show this data on internet usage, you have to get to the data and then filter it down to find the story that you want to tell. Okay, so basically an infographic is a visual story that's created from data, but you don't want to have just a bunch of random data. You want it to drive home a certain point or message, right? That's kind of up to you to determine that one point that you want to communicate. And so you need to be selective, because too many ideas will end up confusing the message and you will lose your audience. Okay, so there's a little bit more information here. I'll leave it up to you to read it all. But just like a good story, an effective infographics conveys an idea in an integrated way. So think of how, you would tell a story. You would have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so that's kind of what you want to formulate from your data as well. And then if you're going to use graphs or charts, it's important that you use the right type of chart that relates well to the kind of data that that you are displaying. And that other article talked a little bit more about that as well. For example, if you have a percentage chart, which is part of a whole, so 100%, right? A circle or a pie chart is a good way to show that. But if you are doing an increase that becomes more than 100% total, you kind of have to use a bar or a line graph for that to make sense. Because if you're, just showing circles, they can't really be more than 100%. It doesn't relate or make sense. Do you guys see what I mean? We'll look at some examples here in a minute. All right, so your actual assignment then is creating this infographic from scratch, but this week, remember, you're only doing the plan, right? Your assignment this week is to develop the content strategy through filtering the data and storyboard your infographic. All right, so there's a website right here that you're going to go to, and then you're going to take that information. It's kind of shown here, but this is just a screenshot. So as this is very fresh, it probably has this exact information on the web page, but we just need to be sure that somebody who takes this class a year from now, make sure you go to the website so that it's the latest data. But take this information and you decide what information you will need to present your story, okay? There's several other links in here that show some background information. You're not required to show all of that information, but it could help you kind of understand what the information is for. All right, so that's one part of the assignment, and we'll jump into this website here in a minute. The other part right here is to go to the ProQuest library, and we've given you directions because it's a little bit difficult to find information for graphic design students in the ProQuest library, if you guys haven't noticed. So we gave you the clue right here to search under arts and use data visualization and make sure you include the quotation marks. That will bring up a few articles. There isn't a lot, but there is a couple of articles in there on data visualization. Sorry, I'm running out of voice here. That can help you understand how to take the data and find your story strategy. And you're going to need to reference one of those articles in there in your assignment. Okay, so let's, you want to take a look at this website so we can kind of see what I'm talking about here? All right, okay, so you go to the website and you will see it actually has a little bit of an infographic right here to begin with. Okay, so this is the internet users in the world by regions. And you can see it has a color code right here, and this is a pie graph. Why do you think a pie graph works here? Yeah, it creates a visual. But why does just the pie, a circle and a pie graph work better than a bar graph here, for example? The size works. It's also representing the whole population of the world, right? So it's 100% of the people on the planet. Exactly. And then we can see the different sections of the people on the planet. So we can see that half of the people on the planet are that this is the people that are using the internet, I should say. So this represents all of the users of the internet on the planet. Half of them live in Asia. Okay, you can see 17% live in Europe, 10% in Latin America, 9% in Africa, 8% in North America, 3% in the Middle East, and a little tiny bit lives in Oceania and Australia. So does this surprise you guys when you see it like this? Because when you just look at it really quick, you can see how much more. Okay. So why does it surprise you? Does it surprise you that there is more internet users in Africa than there is in North America? Okay. And even more in Latin America than there is in North America? Yeah, interesting. You would think that technologically developed countries like North America would be way up there, right? Okay, so think about it though. What are some of the factors that go into this that makes this statistic look the way that it does? How many people live in Asia compared to North America? Right? Asia includes China and India. All right? Both China and India have 1 billion more people than the United States as a population. Yeah, so not much more than twice as many. Okay? 1 billion plus more people live in China than in the United States. And there's even less people in Canada than the United States, right? And also another billion plus more people live in India than live in the United States. So you definitely have the scale of just population is so much heavier in Asia that's why out of the whole world region, the whole world of internet users, there's that many that are from Asia or from Europe, okay? Africa has a lot bigger population than North America. And so that's why this could be a very surprising statistic, but that's something that you need to keep in mind, right? So let's take a look at the statistics here and the numbers that you have to look at. So here, look at here, the population in Asia, 4 billion, 148 million, whatever, right? Look at it compared to Europe, Latin America, Africa becomes in second, right? Look, North America is clear down there. So this, when you see the population estimate, that relates very well to the percentages that are up here, right? So now it starts making a little bit more sense. You can see that 50% of the population of the world live in Asia. And then it has exact numbers of internet users right here. But then it also has the penetration rate. And so that means how many Asians compared to Asia itself use the internet. And that's probably where some of your feelings and thoughts might be skewed, because you feel like, oh, in North America, everybody has access to the internet. Everybody uses a cell phone, so forth, right? Maybe not so in Africa, Asia, or even Latin America. And you can see right here, there the percentages are quite different. Which area has the highest percentage of penetration? Okay, North America. So here is where it's starting to make sense that more people, percentage-wise of the population in North America use the internet than they do in Africa, for example. That's only 26%, right? So here you see those more technologically developed countries have a higher percentage. North America, Europe, Australia, right? And then the other countries are a little bit lower, like the Middle East, Latin America, Africa is the lowest one here. So there's lots of different pieces of information and data that can be emphasized here. Then let's look at the growth, okay? So the growth in the last 17 years, where do you see the biggest percentages? Okay, you're asking what is penetration? So penetration means like the concentration of people in that country. So this is how many people, a percentage of population of the world that's using the internet. 55% of the people that are using the internet in the world live in Asia. But only 44% of Asians use the internet. Does that make sense? So, and if you compare that to North America, right? Only 4.8% of the people that use the internet in the world live in North America. But out of the North Americans, 88% use the internet. So those are two really different types of data. Does that make sense to you now, Tricia? Okay, like how concentrated the internet use is in those specific areas. Okay, so going back to the growth. So you see here then, where is the biggest growth? Somebody said Africa. Okay, so 7,000% increase since 2000 of internet use in Africa. And then second is the Middle East with 4,000% increase. And then we go to Latin America, Asia, and North America is clear down here at 196%. What do you think that is? Why is our growth not as much as, why is our number so low there? Yeah, everybody already have had it, since 2000, we were pretty integrated, we're at the cutting edge of technology. And so there hasn't really been that big of an increase of new people accessing the internet since 2000. We all had the internet in 2000 and we all use it now. But in some of these other places, Africa, for example, and the Middle East, that is something that has really grown in their infrastructure. They have gotten a lot more cell phone towers, Wi-Fi is more readily available. Technology has become a lot more readily available for the population in those countries in the last 17 years. So that's why that increase is so drastic in these other areas. So can you see how this data right here, when you're just looking at numbers, can be really helpful if you have some kind of visuals to show the differences and what's happening here, right? So now it's up to you for this assignment to choose one or two or all three of these types of pieces of information: the population of the world, the penetration rate, and the growth, and focus on that for your infographic. I would suggest that you kind of focus on one of these pieces of information to tell your story, but you can really easily back it up and kind of compare it to some of these other things. So start thinking in your mind before you even start designing anything. Don't break out your graph tools in Illustrator, none of that yet. Just start thinking about how to tell this story to somebody else that wasn't in class right now. If you were going to give this information to somebody in your family or one of your friends, how could you visually represent this so that it becomes like, ah, I see what's happening here, you know, so that you don't only see this graph, but also, that was kind of surprising to you, but kind of clarify it with some of this other data. Do you guys see what we're getting at? All right, so here you can see penetration rates, they're shown in a graph. And here you can see internet uses in the world, and they're shown in a graph. But I think rather than just seeing 3 different graphs like this, you're going to create an infographic that really kind of tells the story a little bit more and becomes, you know, a little bit more engaging than just seeing these graphs. Okay, if you want to, you can see that you can click and it will show each one of these regions in detail. So if you went to Asia, it will, you know, kind of break that down a little bit more. It also shows Facebook statistics, things like that that are kind of interesting. And if you guys would like to go one step further and just decide to compare Facebook statistics, you can do that as well. You would have to do a little bit more digging though. You would have to go in and click on each one of these areas and glean the information from each one of those. So it would be a little bit more background work, but that's fine too, if you want to do that, tackle that quest. So let's see what you're, for week 1, and we will talk more about this on Thursday. I will show you a little bit more on how to present it. But so start kind of digging through this data, make some notes, you know, by hand or in a Word document or however you want to do it. For your final, you're going to use InDesign to lay out your content strategy and arrange it so that it can be presented to a client for approval. So that's what I'll talk more about on Thursday, how to present it. But these are the components. So these are the things you can start thinking about now. The synopsis of the main story you want to tell. So you can put in there, I want to compare Facebook usage or internet usage in the world and show how it has really grown in certain areas of the world compared to others, and how that has impacted the overall internet use of the world. Okay, for example. And then a plan for your infographic. So think about, you know, what are you going to show first and what are you going to show second, and what's going to be the conclusion. And if we kind of go back to this video, remember how they showed this first? They showed 10% is what we hear. They showed that first. And then they showed 20% is what you read. And then they brought home the big point, which means 80% we recall from what we see and do. And that was the big message. So you can see they kind of took it in steps right here. Okay, it went from the little one, the next one, and then bam, this is what I want you to remember. Because then you can relate back to these other 2 things. You see how that's more effective than if they just talked about the 80% and didn't show the comparisons to what you read and what you hear. It's a lot more effective when you build it up by showing that you only remember 10% of what you hear. So you guys are only going to remember 10% of what I say, right? But because I'm using a visual, hopefully you'll remember more. All right. Okay, so that's your plan. Include your plan for hierarchy. So like, what are you going to show biggest and so forth? The type of imagery that you want to use. Are you going to use maps, or are you going to use, you know, what are you going to use? Flags, whatever you want to use. And what type of text you're going to include. Think about the types of graphs that's going to be best for visualizing your data. Think of colors, you know, pick a nice color palette. And then that citation of the ProQuest article. So all of that needs to be in your final submission. But for now, I think you just start kind of working on maybe the first 4 points, start thinking about those. And then On Thursday, I will talk a little bit more about the presentation of all of it. It's going to be presented as a multi-page PDF, and you have a naming convention, and that's it. So, do you guys feel ready to start working on assignment 1? Okay, cool. Does it sound fun? All right, good. Okay, Terry's excited anyway. All right, we are getting to be time to wrap up here. So just kind of week 1, your strategy plan, finding the story, planning the visuals. Okay, you don't need to do any of the actual graphs yet. You can just say, I'm going to show this part of the information, I'm going to use a bar graph. This part of the information, I'm going to use a pie graph. You don't have to create the graphs yet. That's next week, okay? And then present your plan. Don't skip these steps, okay? This is the important part of design work. It's the process, it's the research. Analyze the data. If you don't understand the data, you're not going to be able to present it to someone else, right? And you kind of noticed that when you first looked at it and it was confusing to you. Make sure you pinpoint your message. What is it that you want to drive home? Which one of those pieces of data do you want to be like your main point in your message? And then plan your strategy. Find out how the other pieces of information kind of can build up to it or back up your information. Outline your strategy, and then present your strategy. And we'll talk more about that on Thursday. So this is the order. You can't skip these steps. You have to go through each one of these things for this to be successful in the end. All right. Okay. Next session, Thursday at 5 p.m. Before that, I will see you in the discussion. We'll chat in there and talk about infographics. We'll talk about in the introductions, we'll talk about how we feel about interacting with technology. And so on Thursday, we'll continue the strategy presentation, and we'll talk a little bit more about the assessment. All right. Okay. And let me know if you have any questions at all. All right. Goodbye, everyone.